computer, and then, I will send it to you.
Thank you.
Does, it show, pause, okay, stop recording, okay, it goes. Good morning to everyone. Thank you actually, for joining us today. We have the pleasure and honor to have an excellent speaker, Katherine Reilly. Katherine has been ELT author, teacher trainer, and she's based in Greece. And, I'm sure, she travels, around the world. She specializes in learner-centered teaching, and her talks are most, of all, I mean, more or less, they are well known. She has given talks, to TESOL. Last year, for example, there was a talk that I heard that there was an excellent talk. I didn't go, I couldn't go because I was co-presenting in, IATEFL, British Council, several organizations. She has written books, several, I mean, I don't know how many, you can tell us actually, the number.
46.
Okay, yeah. And she has she's well known for her work, for her training, for her teacher training actually courses, the books, the publications, and so on. So the floor actually is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Natasha. Thank you. Thank you to Diri, the organizers. A huge thank you to everyone who has attended because I know how busy your schedules are. So, we have a lot of things to discuss today, and I'm going to start off by sharing my presentation with you. Now, this presentation means a lot to me. It reflects everything that I've done in my career, everything that I've strived to promote in ELT. We're talking about inclusive, accessible learning to all learners. Now, when we're talking about inclusive and accessible learning, we're talking about building the confidence to succeed in this field. And this is what we're going to share today with you. Now, I recently read a book and I remember this quote, a specific quote that lingered in my mind for a long time. Throughout my challenges with being bullied, I learned I have a choice. I have a voice. I have power over my thoughts, and my bully from Charlena Jackson's Teachers Just Don't Understand. Bullying Hurts. What bothered me the most is that teachers just don't understand the title of the book. And I'm like, is this true? Do we actually neglect or ignore our students' needs? And this is something that we're going to look into today. I know this sounds counterproductive, but I'm going to start off with disempowerment. But Catherine, aren't you going to talk about empowering our students? Well, I think that one specific approach in doing this is to talk about disempowerment in the classroom. Throughout this presentation, I'll be sharing student stories. I'll change the names where necessary. I remember when I was a student, and probably most of you have similar experiences, that the students had no voice. The teacher had to decide what to teach, how it was taught, and what we learned. Back then, it was mostly rote learning, learning things by heart. And I'm going to share one small narrative from my life. I'm horrible at learning things by heart. I'm also a TEDx speaker. It took me 5 months to learn my speech by heart. I was crying because I couldn't make it. And it's unfair to our students to have them learn things by heart. There are so many accessible approaches to learning. And since we're talking about this, the one-size-fits-all tasks. I'm proud to say that Mr. Kosmas Vlachos and Nikos Sifakis from the University of Athens, we've discussed this thoroughly about adapting our materials to the needs of our students. And this is something we'll discuss today. Identity. I'm privileged to be teaching in a school in Athens. My classes consist of students from the Philippines, from Egypt, from India, and so many other countries around Europe. So we have this multicultural hub of identities. And unfortunately, the books we use to teach do not reflect their cultures, the language, or the experiences. And I think the worst of all is how they see their teacher, fear of making mistakes. I'm going to stop sharing for now because I want to share this wonderful story, and it happened yesterday. So yesterday, a new student came into my class. She had to switch classes due to the fact that her teacher was kind of rough on her. She told me that she never collaborates, she never participates, she's making trouble in class. So they brought this student to me, and she was still hesitant to participate. So at one point, we started talking about cultures, and then she started lighting up, and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm from that country. I don't want to share the country, and I want to share a few things." And then we started discussing about a writing task, and I told her, "Can you please write about what we discussed today? Can you share some of your experiences?" So she wrote me a 200-page essay. She's a B1 level student, and she presented it in front of her classmates. Now, that was my first experience with a student because she was given the opportunity to share her knowledge, her experiences, and her cultural identity. Never neglect what a student has to offer. Now, exclusion from decisions. I let my students choose some routines and materials in class. For example, do you guys want to correct the exercises first or have a dictation? And they're like, no, 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 let's do the dictation first. And how we do dictation? Do you want to expand the words that we just learned into sentences? Yes, we'll do that. Or do you want to have an oral presentation? Now, giving them the opportunity to select how they're going to present actually boost their self-esteem because they feel that they have command of the lesson. They actually do. And they're in charge of their own learning destiny. Passive participation. I hate it when teachers just express their opinion. They're dictating, the lesson. They're expressing grammar without having the students collaborate with them. Fixed mindsets. Unfortunately, this still happens today. I have a colleague who says that you're not good enough, or they say you're not a good student, you're a bad student. Since we're all teachers, please exclude this from your vocabulary. We can never say that you're a good or bad student. There are no good or bad students. Everyone has their strong points. Everyone has something to offer. It's horrible to call students that. And yes, we always have this beautiful student sitting in the front, raising the hand all the time. Miss, I want to answer this question with the gorgeous, hair and everything. And we favor students, and that's horrible. We should never do this. Everyone has to speak their own voice. Now, if you take a look at this huge list here, here's an example of a diverse class of learners. Now, I would like at this point for people to participate in the chat. Please look at this list and tell me, does this remind you of one of your classes? And I'm not talking about all the bullets, but most of them. Can you see these reflected in your classrooms? Right now, I have one class that reflects all of these. So long story short, it is horrible to say that the books that are presented are tailored for a specific audience. No, they are not. We should adapt the teaching materials accordingly. Yes, Effie, I agree with you. Now, let's move on to something else. This is 2025's rainbow map that has to do with LGBTQI students. Now, why am I going to talk about LGBTQI students? In this slide that I showed you previously, the last prompt, LGBTQI learners needing identity affirming content. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the examination process, you know about one university that has included speaking prompts, and the pictures, the imagery for the speaking part of the test includes families of the same gender as regards the parents. So you have two men, two women that are parents of a family. We do not see these things reflected in books. We do not see students that have disabilities reflected in books. I can actually think of only two publishers that have boldly made this initiative to include such imagery. Now, this is the rainbow map of 2025. This is based on legislations in each country. This is based on incidents of violence and how LGBTQI are accepted in every country. As you can see, as we're talking about Greece, our percentage right now is 69%. Many countries say that this map does not reflect the reality, as legislation does not equal respect. Okay, because there is legislation for gay marriage in Greece, but that doesn't mean that respect is also nurtured in the process. And I'm going to ask you two questions now. How many LGBTQI students had problems with bullying due to sexual orientation? I have LGBTQI students, you have LGBTQI students. How many of them do you think have been bullied due to sexual orientation? I'm actually quite interested to see the percentage that you're going to answer in the chat. Just give me a number. How many do you think are bullied? Of course, this depends on country. This depends on the city because each town has a different approach to treating human beings with respect. Now, let's see a few numbers in the chat. How many students do you think? 50% maybe, 70%? Well, actually, both of you are quite close to that number. And most of them, if not directly, they have been indirectly hurt by remarks against the community. Thank you, Panayota. That's true. Having said this, oh, and George, at some point in their life, probably most of them, 80%. Effie, yes, at the university level or having been bullied in secondary or primary school. I'd say all of them. I'd say all of them. Okay, I still see some percentages coming in. It's actually 82%. It's incredible. Now, the second question I'm going to ask you, how many LGBTQI students who have been attacked did not report it? Now, I want to specify something. There's a statistic going around the world that 2/3 of LGBTQI students have been attacked. In Greece, they say it's about 60%. In other countries, it's 70. This varies. But how many of these students have reported that they have been attacked? So in this case, how many they did not report? Let's see the stats. How many did not report? 90%. I'd say that's an actual representation of Greece. Extremely few, some of fear. Well, 80%. Let's look at the percentage. 61%. We're talking about 2/3 of students do not report it. Now, this is the official statistic. I'm quite sure it's way more than this. Okay, so having talked about LGBTQI, we're going to talk about empowerment and inclusion. How and what is student empowerment? When we want to offer learners the confidence, the opportunities to take charge of their own learning journey, regardless of the background, their identity, or anything else that might hinder their progress. When we're talking about empowerment, okay, you might think this is the opposite of disempowerment. However, there are some things that I want to share here. Student voice. I have my students choose what they're going to talk about. They choose the topics, the themes, what kind of project would you like to do. I give them 3 choices every time, or 2 choices. I let them choose something. Collaborative roles. I have students take charge in the lesson, have them in pairs, collaboration. I'll give you an example. I have some students in class who are quite withdrawn. They're introverts. They do not like to speak, but we do have to develop their speaking skills. And I use speaking triangles. What is a speaking triangle, for example? You have a discussion between 2 students, and you have the third one who is taking notes. Now, since we're talking about inclusive materials in ELT, many of the books that we teach today in language schools, they might say, what are your hobbies in a speaking task? So the student will start saying, my hobbies are football and basketball. They learn like 2 things by heart. What about having a dialogue, a conversation, a collaboration? So one student asks the other, for example, can you please tell me what your hobbies are? Okay, I like playing basketball. Oh, when do you play basketball? I play on Wednesdays and Fridays. Have you been playing many years? And you have a conversation instead of becoming passive recipients of knowledge. Now, you have a third student who is taking notes at that instant of what the other 2 are saying. Once the conversation is complete, you ask the note taker, who is the shy student, to express in his own words what he has taken down in his notes. Now, this is the interesting part. The student will express their own take on what they have heard. And that's the magic of this whole thing, because the student will present the output, what he has taken notes of, in his own way. And this is how you can actually have everyone integrated into the learning process. Goal setting. I have students who struggle with vocabulary. They cannot learn words by heart. I have the same issues. So what do I tell them? People, can we learn 3 words today? I'd be very happy. But miss, they're like 10 words. I want you to learn 3 words today and how to use them in a sentence. I want you to learn 2 words and how to use them in our everyday speech. And that's what we do at the end of the lesson. Okay, guys, choose 3 words out of the ones that we learned today. You have 2 minutes. I want 3 sentences. So they strive to write down the sentences, and we have time Before they leave, they read the sentences. They're proud because they learned how to use them, not only what they mean. And that's a goal setting. Creative expression, what we just said. Integrate personal experience, express yourself freely. Safe participation. Can I ask you guys something? Do your students feel safe? Do they actually feel safe? Or if they say something, the other students in class are going to bully them. For example, at the beginning of the school year, we have some students and they're like, "Can I answer, miss?" "Sure." And they say it's B, for example. And then the other students are like, "No, no, no, it's A, it's A. You made a mistake." And that student will never speak again. You have to set the rules on the first day before you start the lesson on the first day in September. The only one who will be correcting is me. No one is allowed to correct your classmates. You have to respect one another. And we all make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. I make mistakes. If you set the rules from the first day, everything will be fine. Critical thinking. I hate yes, no answers and open-ended questions. That's horrible. I mean, if it's not an open-ended question. So, for example, there are many questions in course books today. I find that horrible. It's 2025. I can still tell you course books today that have questions that can be answered by yes or no. Change the questions. Please change the questions because we want them to think. Instead of saying, "Do you like pizza?" which is a yes or no question, change it to something else. "What's your favorite food?" Or, "Do you like pizza and why?" All right, add a question word at the end. Choice and autonomy. There must be options available on how to complete tasks or show understanding. A student might struggle with writing. Give them the option to do an oral presentation. Inclusive practices. We're going to talk about that more thoroughly. Now, what is inclusive teaching? It's an educational approach that removes barriers so everyone can learn. Now, I'm speeding a bit because I want to show you something interesting here. This is inclusion, disability, physical needs, neurodiversity, special educational needs. When we had someone with ADHD, in the old days, they used to reprimand them. Stay still. Stop, fiddling with your pencil. It's their way of concentrating in class. Dyslexia, dysgraphia, there's so many things that we today are aware of. Back in the day, we didn't know of these things. But now that we do know, we should support our students. Multilingualism. Do you guys know that I have students that speak Philippines? They do not speak Greek, and I'm trying to teach them English. So I have to use visual input to incorporate more images that I find online, use them on the whiteboard to help my students express themselves. Gender identity. I'll be honest, when I was young, I was bullied so much in class, I'd usually go hiding in the locker room and I'd cry because I was afraid of expressing myself in class. Please do not do this to your students. Have them feel welcomed in class. Race, ethnicity, socioeconomic background. Speaking of which, a lot of students do not have the opportunities in life to strive. However, we should encourage them to fight, to struggle, to win what they can in life, to survive. And this is an important story for me. If we are able to offer help with extra materials in class, to support them, to offer them the voice, please do so. When I was young, I did not have that support from my teachers as a student. When I went to university, I remember my father used to tell me, "I can't support you financially." And in America, you know how student loans are. They're horrible. So I made a decision back then. I told my father, "I'm going to study. I'm going to work very hard." So I remember I would sleep at 12 o'clock at midnight. I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 maximum. I'd go to a tomato factory and I'd struggle to carry tomato crates to make some money up until 8 o'clock. I'd leave, go to home, change, go to university, and in the afternoon I'd work at a hotel as a busboy, clean tables, work in the bar, wash dishes. 12:30 I'd be back home, dead tired. When did I study? I didn't study much. I was a horrible student. I'd study during the weekends or whenever I had breaks. But you need to struggle in life to make ends meet. You have to work hard. And if we as teachers can actually offer our students the potential to shine and have them alleviate, this whole situation, it would be great. Give them photocopies, offer them something more in class. Now, inclusive participation, every voice counts. Everyone should have the ability and the privilege to speak in class. If a student feels that he is not being given attention, speak to them, encourage them. And of course, we have learning preferences. Yes, a lot of people call these things learning skills, learning preferences. There's a huge debate about it. Some students are more into visual content, audio. Offer them all the selections, okay? And accessibility to resources. This is universal design for learning. And since we're talking about universal design for learning, everyone, I'm very proud. This is my new book, Breaking Barriers. This is my life's work. So I decided that I wanted to write a book about critical discourse analysis and universal design for learning. I wanted to thank Professor Nikos Ifakis and Kosmas Vlachos because they are the people that inspired me to follow these educational approaches and methodologies. And it actually works. It actually works because we want our students to be more included in the learning process. Now, I don't want to do a promotion right now, but I will use some materials from my book and share with you so that you can gain further knowledge about what critical discourse analysis is. Okay, it's an approach, critical discourse analysis, that examines how language is used to construct social realities, shape power relations, influence in the ideologies. There are a lot of hidden meanings in texts, assumptions, power dynamics. How many of our books represent, for example, the woman in house as a housekeeper cleaning? And these are things that, should be abolished, these stereotypes. When you hear the word nurse, a woman comes to mind, but there are also male nurses. Having said this, okay, I'd appreciate it if you can write in the chat what's wrong with this presentation, with this illustration here. So, what's wrong with this illustration? All men. Okay. This is reflected in many ELT books around the world as we speak. ELT books are appropriated, they are adjusted. Yes, all men, all Caucasian. Thank you, Susan. So the imagery is adjusted and tailored according to the country that is going to teach the book. There are variations of the ELT books that we teach in Greece, and there are different versions in various countries. And this is horrible. All male, only men. Now, if you Google it, if you search on FreePick, for example, you can find materials that reflect reality. Here's a picture of women that are proudly in various, uniforms in different occupations. It's up to the teacher to bring the materials in class. Now, let's put some theory into practice. Universal design for learning. This is the second aspect of my book. We're talking about flexible learning environments that are designed to accommodate the diverse needs of all learners. What do we mean by universal design for learning? We want our students to access information, we want them to engage with the materials, and we want them to demonstrate their knowledge. All of this means equal opportunities for success. How do we do this? I used an example earlier about nurse. If you look it up into all ELT materials, you'll see words like fireman, which could have been firefighter, policeman, mailman, chairman. Yes, things have changed lately in the markets, but we still have a long way to go. Now, I'd like you, the audience, to answer some of these professions here. How can we make them more inclusive? So think of the equivalent words that we can use for each occupation. For example, a policeman can be a police officer. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now, I'll give you a few seconds to write most of them, as many as you know, and then I'll display all of them on the board here. One of the things that my students once told me, and this is a true story, and this is one of the reasons that I integrated this into my book. This was like 5 or 6 years ago. And one of my students, their mother is a police officer. And I remember my student said, my mom's a policeman. And my student was like, that doesn't sound right. Can we say policewoman? And I'm like, dear, it's not your fault. The ELT book doesn't describe it accurately. Let's learn police officer. Now, my student, who was 9 years old, 8 years old at the time, had this question lingering in his mind. So this goes to show you how many things we're lacking in our textbooks. Okay, I can see so many wonderful, wonderful interpretations of the words to make them more inclusive. Thank you all. Now, check this out. These are some suggestions. They're not the only ones. There are so many. Um, th- as for the last one, because a lot of people ask me, instead of housewife, can we use housekeeper? Well, housekeeper is someone that is being paid to do the chores in the house. So I'd say a homemaker. But these are all open, to debate. Household manager, thank you, Tina. There's so many. Chair manager, thank you all. Thank you all. I can see so wonderful, wonderful output here. Okay, so having said this, because I have to move forward, take a look at this text. This is in one book that I've been teaching the past year, and I felt so horrible after teaching the lesson. Check this out. Putting it all together. This was at a B1 level class that I'm teaching, and it says, a school magazine has asked students to share their experiences of traveling. Write an article about a recent trip you had abroad. Okay, so my students were like, Miss Kiria, I've never traveled abroad. And I'm like, you've never seen a plane
Mhm.
before? And she's like, only in pictures. I've never been to the airport. I'm like, have you ever been to Greece anywhere? Nope, just in Athens. Okay. And then I realized, yeah, this isn't inclusive. Most of our students today are struggling financially. We know this. We're living in very difficult times, both our students, educators, all of us. And imagine now asking a student to talk about traveling. This will diminish the student's self-esteem. They will feel degraded. Why? Because someone in class might have traveled. They're like, I'm not as lucky as they are. I don't have their experiences. And that's why we have to adapt our teaching materials to reflect what's going on in today's world. We want inclusive education. So, experiences of traveling, recent trip abroad? No. We're going to change it a bit. How about a dream travel destination and write about an imaginary trip? And this is where things get interesting. I had my students turn on the computers. We have a computer room or their mobile phones. And I was like, where would you like to travel? Japan, miss, because I love anime. That's great. Okay, what about you, Andrew? I'd like to go to China. China? Why China? Because they have this awesome technology there. I don't remember what he was saying. But the thing is that each and every one of my students started choosing a different destination. I'm like, let's go do some research. And one of my students was like, Miss, did you know there's an Eiffel Tower in Tokyo? I didn't know that. Really? That's interesting. They also have a Statue of Liberty in Tokyo. Really? I didn't know that. So they were taking notes and they were excited. Okay, guys, let's write this writing task. And one of my students wrote this, and I swear it was amazing. When I grow up and make a lot of money, I'm going to travel to Tokyo and Japan. I'm going to try sushi and everything. It was amazing. I'm going to visit Sendai and I'm going to see some temples and have this awesome red temples that you can insert some coins and a lot of people pray there. And they have the fastest bullet trains in the world. And I'm like, wow, wow. They blew my mind just because we changed the task. So we are talking about 21st century skills. Why? Critical thinking. They're like, what am I going to do when I grow up? And you know what I did? I also added a stipulation. Let's imagine that your imaginary trip is going to last 48 hours. You don't have much time. Choose the 4 or 5 things that you want to do. They had an oral presentation afterwards. They had to think about what they had to do in 48 hours. Also, we had research, credibility of sources, bias, because unfortunately there's a lot of bias within AI, the internet. They had to do their proper research. Collaboration. Some of my students were working together. Two of them wanted to travel together. I'm not saying that they're a couple or anything, but they're like, we're best friends or something. We're going to Paris together. It was wonderful. So they also, one was taking notes, the other one was searching the internet. So we have collaboration, role designations, leadership, because I had another group of three together. One was lazy, but it doesn't matter. She was giving, orders. Note taking, organizing info, communication. They were expressing and debating ideas. No, we're not going there in 48 hours. I don't want to see the Colosseum. I want to do something else. And that's the whole magic of having them work on an essay of an imaginary trip. And of course, they did this presentation. And you know what? In the end, I realized that we're setting life goals. They will visit these destinations one day. Okay, I'm going to share a very sad story with you. It happened to me 2 weeks ago at a major international conference. Now, as you can see here in the whiteboard, my presentation, we have pronouns. Whenever I talk about pronouns, some people in my audience are like, oh, not the pronouns again. Well, I'm going to talk about two issues here. Please respect people's pronouns because some people, as myself, I identify as a female, I use she, her. And because our language, the English language, has become very inclusive, you know this, in essays, writing tasks, in our oral communications, there has been a tendency to use they, them much more often to include everyone. Now, as for my personal experience, 2 weeks ago, I had the privilege and the honor of speaking at a major European conference. It was a dream come true for me. And the people who organized the event were absolutely fantastic with me. They 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 welcomed me with open arms. The audience was amazing. However, an hour before the presentation, I literally landed, and from the airport, I went straight to the hotel. I had about 45 minutes to change, grab my laptop, and go to the conference. So the first time they addressed me as sir. They were using male pronouns, and I'm like, okay, appearances don't matter as how you present yourself, but I'm like, seriously, my name is Catherine. Um, I'm the spokeswoman for the conference, and they were addressing me as he. He did it once, he did it twice. I asked him not to continue. So afterwards, there was the bellboy who came to carry my luggage, and he addressed me as sir again. I'm like, what's going on in this hotel? I felt horrible, and I started blaming myself. Is my hair something wrong with it? The clothes am I wearing? Didn't I do my makeup correctly? So my self-esteem took a huge blow. I was presenting in less than 20 minutes, so I wore my high heels, I dressed, I put on my makeup, took a deep breath. I'm like, okay, this is going to be the end of the world. And when I reached the conference, my wonderful friends at the conference welcomed me. They hugged me. It was amazing, and I put everything behind me. But this is a part of my everyday life of LGBTQI individuals' everyday lives. Please respect one another. It's not difficult to respect your fellow human beings. Now, since I did mention our evolving language, there is a tendency to use they and all the derivatives in context, for a singular subject. One such example, someone may not know their tax number. Does it sound wrong? Or do you think it's correct? I'd like to see this, in the comments. Do you think that this is a wrong sentence? It's a correct sentence. Okay, you don't know if it's a male or a female, so you're just being inclusive. Thank you, George. Okay, now check this out. Themselves. We're talking about the reflexive pronoun. What about themselves? Singular pronoun as a gender neutral alternative? Okay, each person should be proud of themselves. Guys, I'll be honest with you. If we were to teach the English language as it first came out 500 years ago, we would be teaching a completely different language. Our language evolves as society evolves. We have new societal norms that are being integrated into the language, and it would be ridiculous to assume that things can remain the way they are. So if we're talking about a neologism or if it's something established, actually, have they been using themselves? Or is this something new? I actually added this to my book, and I would like to read something from you, for you here in my book. I'm actually a bit nervous now because I'm reading from my book. Okay, so it's actually both. Now, there has been a recent resurgence. It's been used in the context of discussion around gender identity and inclusivity. However, I'd like to read an extract from Shakespeare. Yes, so this is from the Comedy of Errors, and this is from 1623. There's not a man I meet but doth salute me, as if I were their well-acquainted friend. This is from Shakespeare in 1623. Now, similarly, Jane Austen in 1813 employs singular they in Pride and Prejudice. To be sure, you knew no actual good of me, but nobody thinks of that when they fall in love. Okay, so this is a natural part of the English language. This has been used for centuries. Interesting, isn't it? Now, How do we use they and its derivatives? A student who feels that his identity is not respected can become a student who feels that their identity is not respected. Our language is changing. If a reader finds that his interpretation differs from the author's intent, he should consult the accompanying commentary. And as you can see accordingly, we switch the pronouns. And yes, this has been established and is being used as we speak. Now, I I could go on for like 2 hours, but I don't want to do this to you. I could analyze each prompt here. I will focus on specific ones for the sake of time. I always encourage my students to state their opinions, to discuss how they feel about a text. Remember what I said about traveling earlier. The same applies for what we teach them in our ELT books. Now, most ELT books, especially in the younger level classes, they have these huge houses because they have to teach living room, dining room, kitchen, garden, garage, everything, bedroom. And my students, I remember, I'm never going to forget this. One of my students said, Miss, who has money to buy a house like this? And I'm like, you're absolutely right. Imagery does not reflect reality. And I appreciate it when my students share their opinions with me. We talked about open-ended questions. I let them choose tasks. If I have time for one exercise out of two, I'm like, which one do you want to do, guys? The gap filling or the multiple choice? Of course, they'll choose the multiple choice, but I let them choose it. I know they're going to choose it, but giving them the power to know that they're commanding part of the lesson boosts their self-esteem so much. Student-led activities, debates, I have them discuss their opinions. Critical thinking, I'm in favor of critical thinking. I design tasks that require them to think critically about an issue. I have them debate in class because that's what's important, to express their opinions as we do in writing. Now, one of the most important issues is to question sources, assumptions. Many times I'm like, do you agree with the author of this article? And they're like, no. Why? Because this is something that cannot actually happen. Real world dilemmas, ethical discussions, everything. I always have my students talk in class. They know that they can express themselves freely. Now, collaboration, it's like the speaking triangle that I talked to you earlier, or when I have a presentation. This is where AI helps a lot. I have a student, he did a presentation about his country of origin, and we used AI to create a wonderful presentation. After he was done, he asked his classmates, what do you think about my culture? What do you think about this festival? So they responded and they started talking and they started comparing the ones of his culture to the ones that we have in Greece. And this is what we want. We want feedback and reflection and respectful communication. And of course, inclusion, because if you don't acknowledge different identities and background, this is horrible. Yes, I've talked about my students. A lot of them come out to me as LGBTQI. They feel it's safer to come out to me than any other colleague due to my gender identity. I respect that. It's a privilege. I love them for that. I want our students to have the same freedom to express their identity to you, to all teachers, not only to me. And this is up to you to create an environment for safe self-expression. Now, when we're talking about practical applications, yes, I'm speeding up a bit because I want to have a wonderful discussion at the end, with Q&A. At this point, because I always have some extra materials, in my presentations, I have 3 case studies. These are actual case studies from my own students. I've changed the names. I would like you, the audience, to study them when we're done, okay? Because I don't have that much time. And each case study, has to do with special, unique cases. This one is about special educational needs. You have the challenges, reflect upon it, and the next slide has some possible, ways of dealing with this. Now, the other case study that I'd like you to study is about a non-binary student that feels alienated, that does not have any voice. The next slide also has the answers. You'll see it at your own, time. And finally, a mixed B1 level class who are disengaged from grammar activities, and you have to try to inspire them to take active, command of their learning process. Now, these are all in the presentation. And I would also like to say this here. Just give me a second. Here's a QR code. You can scan this QR code, or our wonderful Miss Natasa Tsadila is going to send you the links. This QR code has a handout of everything that we've been discussing today, theory, practice, some extra links that I've shared with you from the British Council. I've been collaborating with them extensively. I've produced my own materials that they are posting on their website. I'm very proud of that, and I've included all of this for your consideration. Now, something else, there's a certificate of attendance that is a fillable, PDF form. You can actually type your name in it and share it, with your audience. Um, a presentation, this one here in PDF form. And finally, I have an exercise sheet for the use of they and their derivatives. So you can print all this, keep it. This is all for you. And also, I have a lot of information about my new book. I'd be privileged and honored if you could take a look at it. There's a sample online. I'd be very happy if you could do that. Now, having said this, I would like to ask you one final question. How can today's session benefit your students? How can today's session benefit your students?
Catherine, sorry, there is just a question, in the chat,
Yes, of
which
course,
is the
please.
content, of the QR code is, password protected.
Oh,
So,
yes, of course it is. Of course. And
so they
thank you,
cannot
Natasha,
access.
for saying this. Diri, capital D. Okay, so once you enter Diri, you are able to access the materials. Yes, I forgot to mention it. And that saves me a lot of time because I would have sent a lot of emails. Okay. Thank you so much. Now, I think I can actually talk about this without the presentation. So here we go. And without the comments, we can actually have a wonderful conversation now. I tried to keep this as short as possible
Yeah.
because I do want to focus on 15 to 20 minutes Q&A. Everyone is free to ask me stories about my students, about my own life, about how to make things more inclusive, situations which you would like to discuss how you would treat them better. We have 27 participants. How did this happen? That's
You're right,
great.
and to begin with, thank you very much, for this,
Thank
talk.
you.
And you touched upon, for example, critical discourse analysis, that some actually of our students are working on critical discourse
Oh, that's
analysis and those
great.
books. You also, mentioned universal design of learning, and one of the student-led seminars that we had, brought in, the universal design of learning. And what, I saw, I mean, anyway, the floor is, now, to the rest, is that how many different aspects of inclusivity, we can see. I mean, there are so many aspects that sometimes we don't even think. I mean, for example, this assumption that, give me your perfect idea what it was, with the airplane, all right,
Yeah.
and okay. I mean, it is just, something that we don't even think. So there are so many things that we have to think before we enter a class, and how we can say something that we might make, a student, either marginalized or offended, or I don't know, or, so sensitive. I don't know, and we might have people, bursting down into tears. All right, and say, now what did I say? How was your day today? But, even how was your day today or yesterday? It might have been that some people, okay, had an awful day, okay, and you never know. Okay, so
I agree with what you just said. I mean, to be honest, the first thing that comes to mind, sorry, I
yeah,
can see
Sanya needs the
Sonia.
QR code
Yes,
again.
you can actually visit my blog directly, katherinereilly.blog. So you just enter that in your Google
All right,
Chrome.
and then you can download.
Yes, I think it's the third post now for Diri. I have a post about my book. The second is about the cover of Time magazine. It's the third one. Yeah.
And regarding our students, I can, forward
Oh,
this,
perfect. Perfect. Okay.
because Catherine
So,
can share this with me.
so what most people think, because in a 45 presentation time span, I can't, um, get into detail about what critical discourse analysis is and universal design for learning. However, just a few examples might help the audience
Yeah.
understand even better. So one of the things that I remember The first thing that students see is that we have a family. The father is the person who is earning money. He's taking care of the family. The mother is the housewife, and I'm using housewife in the stereotypical term because this is the racist approach that we've been seeing throughout the decades. And we also have the family that consists of a brother, a sister, grandmother, grandfather. I have students, and all of you have probably experienced this, that belong to a single parent family. I have students who have been raised by their grandparents because they don't have parents. I have students who are estranged, their parents. There's so many scenarios, and they shouldn't be left out. It's what we say. They feel demoted. They feel that they're not part of active pillars of society. Everyone should belong to society and be able to contribute it. If a student's mentality is degraded or diminished at this young age, it's very difficult for the student to be able to thrive later on in their lives. Now, another thing that I'd like to focus on has to do with culture. Culture is not represented as much as it should be in the pages of our textbooks. This is a huge issue that we see. Now, I have some students from Egypt, and I remember one student once told me, Miss, we're talking about the pyramids. This is not how our country is. And I'm like, what do you mean? This is the history of Egypt. We have, the pyramids and everything. No, miss, it's so noisy. We have a lot of issues. I've never visited the pyramids because life is expensive. We don't have access to transportation where I live. And we're not always happy and we're having picnics outside the pyramids. That doesn't happen. And we're not riding camels. I've never ridden a camel in my life. So we shouldn't make assumptions about
Hmm.
people's culture. And some other things. I have another student who is from Ukraine. And as you can understand, due to the war and everything, a refugee to our country. And for the sake of conversation, let's call him Ivan. So Ivan told me that he lost relatives. He was shocked by what he saw. And I remember speaking with his parents, and they're like, we barely made it out alive. And it's okay if our son doesn't speak in class because he is shaken to his core.
Hmm.
Please don't tell us that he's not participating or anything like that. I'm like, no, it's not an issue. I mean, I understand we'll try to motivate him as much as possible to feel a part of society again. And it took us at least 6 months for him to start speaking again. And whenever there are pages about anything that slightly reflects to human conflict, I'm not going to talk about war, it disturbs him in class. So I try to remove some materials from the textbooks. So we have to learn about history, of course, but whenever we have pages about history and wars and stuff like that, it is disturbing. I just remove them and I find another reading comprehension to teach in class. There's so many sensitivities that we should take into consideration. Another thing, Ivan, once again, he didn't even have pencils or anything. Thank goodness the school gave him pencils. He doesn't even have internet access. We let him use the school computer to do his research or to fool around sometimes. These are things that we should always think about when we're teaching classes. I'm sorry for going on and on. It's just that
Hmm.
these are things that make me very sensitive.
I-
And I
uh,
would, yeah,
F has a question. I'm sorry, is
yes.
it safe to assume that students would let us know? Okay, let me just, well, okay, I lost.
I can ask it if you
Oh, yeah,
want.
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Please
of
go
course.
ahead.
Curious. I mean, is it safe to assume that students would let us know if they want us to use particular pronouns? I wonder if, I don't know that you would know about the DD initiation process, but, when students first arrive here, are they told that they can and should inform their professors? I wonder.
Well, I'll tell you what I do because I remember 3 or 4 years ago, I had a student, and actually, the case study that I'm referring to in my presentation that you can evaluate later on has to do with this student. I've changed the name, of course. Now, I remember I had a class of 8 girls. C2 level students. I love this class. Come on, girls. Let's start off. We're doing grammar today, and girls this, girls that, girls that. And then my student came to me for the sake of conversation. Let's call her Jessica. Miss, I want to tell you something. The other girls know. You're going to know. I'm like, what? And she's like, I'm they. I'm not a she. I'm non-binary. Oh, Martina, I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing it with me. What about management? No, 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 please, miss, only in class. Not even my parents know. Okay. So I respected their wishes and I referred to them with the pronouns they, them. And it was so rejuvenating for the whole class. For, okay, I'm not going to use the real name, Jessica's classmates and everyone, because they were open to speaking as they felt they should. It was it was a privilege for me as well because they shared such an important secret about their personal lives with me, and it's an honor to say the least. I'm sad that they had to hide it from their parents. I'm disappointed in the fact that people and generally students have to hide who they are. And and what occurs in my classroom doesn't necessarily mean that could happen in any other one of my classrooms. For example, if there's a bully in my classroom or a student that is not open to such respectful terms, then this this specific student might not have opened up to me at all. I had a class last year, I think, 2 years ago. It was strictly boys. They were disrespectful, not towards me, generally in society. So at one point, and pardon what I'm going to say, but this is an actual happening in my class. Stop it, Mike, or you're an idiot. I'm sorry for the expressions. You're gay. But they were using it as a derogatory term. And I was like, what did you just say? Sorry, miss, sorry, miss. And I'm like, okay, how in the world would my non-binary student be able to open up in such an environment, knowing that I respect my students, but being afraid of their classmates? I would reprimand their classmates once, twice, three times. Would they become respectful out of respect or out of fear? There's so many things that we have to discuss about these issues. It's a thin line between having students respect one another and knowing why they should respect one another. Anyway, there was another question.
That's by George.
Yes,
Okay. You mentioned two LD books.
yes. Oh, the two books that I mentioned, I'm referring to disabilities. Yes, and not LGBTQI. One, I don't want to promote them. I used to collaborate with them. Kudos to them. I was very happy to see that there is representation of a character with a disability in the books. And the second book is mine, actually. I I struggled to have my main character of the book with a physical disability, and I remember the publisher, the chief editor was 100% in favor of it. The rest were kind of hesitant, and it took about a month or so to reach the final decision to have the main character be represented with a physical disability. They actually went forward with it, and I'm proud of it. I'm very proud. It's actually an ICT book that I wrote. It had to do with information technology. And
And why were it hesitant? What was the problem there? I mean, did they give you any reasons?
yes, they thought that it would be depressing for the audience. And yes, we can start a whole conversation on this. Is it
Was it for
depressing?
adults? No, yes, it was for
No, it's for
adults.
children. It's
Oh,
for
for
children.
children.
I will cover the name of the book. It's one of my books here. I have them actually next to me. I'll just cover the name with one of my notebooks, and I'm just going to show you the image because, okay, so I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
She is in a hovering wheelchair. They
Mhm.
made it more entertaining for the audience, and she
Mhm.
has a lot of gadgets. So they tried to make it less discouraging, to say the least. Now, the thing is that we cannot hide our students' eyes from reality.
Mhm.
Disabilities are a part of our lives. And this is something that I've also added in my personal book. And you should be respectful to people with disabilities. For example, I have one dear friend of mine, and he is using a cane. And I remember he's open about this. I can use his name. I'm like, John, how are you doing? Fine. So it's one of the first times that we started, discussing what it means to be, I'm going to say blind for the time being, and what it means to be trans. And we were exchanging, experiences. And he's like, Catherine, can you stop calling me blind? I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. What did I do? I'm visually impaired. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. So how does that work? Well, I'm blind in one eye and in the other I have 4% vision. I can barely see things, so I'm visually impaired. I'm like, oh, that's interesting to know. So there's so many things about disabilities and how to address these specific, um, I'm not going to call it issues, these specific challenges in life. And I'm calling it a challenge because society has made it a challenge. And there are things like retarded and other vocabulary that is so disrespectful. And I've actually, added some of these inclusive, terminologies in my books that have to do with disabilities. I have a student had a student about 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. For those of you who have followed me on social media, you're probably aware of the fact that I was vice principal of the Refugee School of Athens. So I remember I donated more than 200 of my books to their library. And I organized the whole school because they were teaching Greek. So they wanted someone experienced in English. So we organized the whole school from scratch. And we actually had classes that sat for B1 and B2 exams. It was a huge initiative and we were successful. Now, the thing is that I learned a lot of things from them, from the refugee school. And one of my students was shot, I'm serious, was shot in the cheek and the arm because the student was from Syria when the war was going on back then. The student survived, but had huge difficulties writing. He just started, learning how to write. He was right-handed. Yeah, he was right-handed, and he started learning how to write with the left hand because he had trouble, moving his arm. And this is a part of life. Students and people get injured. Students are born with some, difficulties, some disabilities, and we shouldn't hide the fact that this is a reality. Anyway, yes,
The
any other
particular
questions?
student actually was not born disabled.
No,
Okay,
the student became disabled, yes.
okay, so which means that somehow, we should, teach how
Mhm.
I mean, this has to do with respect and, inclusivity. I mean, he was not respected because he was from Syria, I assume.
Oh, intersectionality. So I'm going to talk about another aspect. Bye, Effie. So I'm going to talk about another aspect. Something that a lot of people, I'm not going to say neglect, but maybe ignore. When we're talking about empowering all learners, we're going to do an intersectional reflection. What do I mean by this? Imagine being trans, coming from a poor background, from a rural area of Greece. So you're stigmatized by three different perspectives of society upon you: gender, financial background, and social status. This is intersectionality. In this case, my student, he received a lot of racism due to his nationality. He did receive some racism because of his disability. And the other problem was that, okay, they were making a lot of fun of him because he also had this stuttering in his voice, which I don't know if he was born with it or if it happened because of the war. And yeah, it was a horrible situation to witness, the way that some people, treated him. And this is, multiple cases of racism that we find reflected upon one student. Okay, so yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? Would you like to ask me something? Not only in the comments, you can turn your mics on.
George,
Hello. Um,
Yes.
I'm the student that presented in UDL. It's a very great framework. Um, have you run into any difficulties when actually applying it? Because it is kind of taxing, and to apply, I've noticed very useful. Like, how do you apply the multiple different aspects? And do you recommend it for all classrooms with not just non-disabled? not just with disabled students, but in general. Yeah.
So you're talking about the educational approach of inclusive learning.
I presented, and the students you mentioned that presented on universal design for learning in the class.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Look,
so
I think that this
it, it
approach.
it does seem it's very useful. Like I wish
Hmm.
as a autistic student, it would be much more useful. Autistic with ADHD would definitely be much more useful.
Hmm.
But it does seem like it could be challenging to incorporate all the different multiple aspects. Does your book go into like how to apply UDL a lot more?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
I have a lot of lesson plans on CDA and UDL in my book, and
Awesome.
with different case studies, different circumstances. If I hadn't done that, I don't think that the book would be worthwhile. But the thing is that it's not only okay, it's fortunate to have a book that, reflects, these approaches and educational methodologies, but you also have to tailor your lesson to the needs of the students. So, for
Hmm.
example, I'm going to talk about two classes that I have. One of my classes is multicultural. Within my class, I have one student that has dyslexia. So I adapt my materials according to cultural representations and one specific student's needs as regards dyslexia. I have another class which is so challenging because one student has ADHD. The other student has low self-esteem. I have two students that are constantly being bullied because of their country of origin. And most of them have huge financial issues. So that class is challenging. However, as teachers, we have an obligation to cater to all of their needs. I can't, turn a blind eye to their needs. And so you have to try to combine some lesson plans, or during the lesson, you have to address some students separately, 5 minutes for one group, 5 minutes for other, then have a joint lesson comparing outputs, or there are some things that you can actually tailor to everyone's needs. And I, I'm not going to say despise. It's a horrible word to say despise. And I'm not going to frown upon colleagues that do not prepare their lessons beforehand. As teachers of the English language, I find it unacceptable not to prepare your lessons in advance. Each lesson must be prepared in advance, a day before. Our job is underpaid. Our job is demanding. We do not rest as much as we should. We know this. We are constantly concerned about the well being of our students. We see them as children. We are third parents for our students. We care about them. And yes, we have to devote at least 2 hours a day preparing the lessons beforehand. I have colleagues who enter the classroom. Oh, where are my books? I left them here yesterday. Where are they? And they're searching in the library. Oh, here's my student book. Okay, class, what did we do last time? Which page are we on? Oh, page 20. Let's see. Oh, yeah, we finished the reading. Let's move on. They should be fired. They should be fired. If you do not prepare your lessons in advance, you have no right to teach children. I'm sorry for being so aggressive, in my opinion. If, for example, your next lesson has to do with traveling to China, prepare a history quill, content and language integrated learning. Prepare something, a text with critical thinking, a project. Check what the next grammar is. Can you incorporate the grammar in the quill that you have just prepared? Is the lesson accessible and inclusive to all participants in class? Will they find it difficult or challenging? Can you use AI to produce an audio of the reading text that you just prepared? So try to think of all this. How about a specific little quiz? Make it challenging for them. Do you guys know what I do every day for my students and it takes up all of my day? My students have their phones, for better or for worse. Okay, that's a huge discussion. I produce a video on YouTube with a QR code and I have two multiple choice questions. I go throughout the school and hide the QR codes under their desks, in the library, in the kitchen, in the bathroom. And I'm like, guys, I've hidden a QR code today. scan it, find it, scan it, and do the test. So they start searching the whole school with their phones. Like, Miss, we found it in the bathroom today. They scan it. They watch a 1 minute video, which is about a trip to China. And under that video, because I did it in Microsoft Forms or in Google Forms, they have two multiple choice questions. What is the video about? The second question, would you visit this country and why? Answer in 10 words. Critical thinking. So I'm sitting at my desk and I receive their answers through Google Forms and I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, oh, Maria found the QR code. She answered the two questions. Oh, John found it as well. They did the test. So you have to keep them engaged. When they enter lesson after the little break or before the lesson starts, Miss, we saw the video about China and the Great Wall. Oh, that's interesting because that's what we're doing today. That's the topic of our lesson today. Unit 3 is about the Great Wall of China, for example.
You see,
So you have to
even,
engage your students.
yeah, what Susan says that even when we follow the course books,
Oh, yes.
actually, we need to do activities as such.
Yes.
Amalia has a question. Okay, because I cannot read very well. Amalia, could you please unmute and ask the question yourself?
Yes, so my question revolves around what are the tools that you often use when adapting material or new material to learners' needs? For example, I had taken a practicum course, and within that class that were higher band, we still have different levels of students. So my question is, what do we do in this case in order to include everyone so no one feels, left behind or yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amalia. And thank you, everyone, for the comments in this section. I keep talking without thanking you. Okay, I'm so happy you asked me. First of all, since we're talking about adapting teaching materials, yes, I do use AI to a great extent. My last 3 sessions for the British Council had to do with incorporating and adapting teaching materials to the needs of the students with artificial intelligence. I'm proud to say, in the handout and the presentation, I have added all the tools that you will need to adapt your materials. I'm very proud of that. And not only that, I've also added links to the YouTube of me presenting these tools and how they work. So if you find the time, you can download the handouts from the British Council that I've produced. You can watch the videos on YouTube and you can see a few examples. Now, to answer everyone's curiosity about what Amalia just asked, I will give you an example and I'll explain in less than a minute. Let's say that you have a B2 level class and they're doing a reading comprehension and they're like, Miss, I don't even understand half the words here. What is the text about? I can't answer any of the questions. So you scan it with your phone, for example, the text. You use ChatGPT or Perplexity or any other chatbot, and you type the following query. This is a B2 level reading text. Can you please adapt it to an A2 level comprehension? Or can you also adapt it to a B1 as well? So this is called scaffolding. What is scaffolding? You produce an easier text for the student, you offer him some assistance, and you gradually remove this assistance until the student can be able to relate to the level that he's supposed to be. So for example, the AI produces a text that is A2 level and another at B1. I know the students that are okay for B1. I give them that one. I ask the AI, can you also produce multiple choice questions? Of course I can. So it also produces multiple choice questions, and it's almost exactly the same as the book, but at a little lower level. And what I find so interesting is that some students that struggle even with B1, I give them the A2. Are you ready for the B1 now? Yes, because I understand the A2 level question, text. They do the B1 and then they can do the B2. And then you gradually remove this assistance, and that's scaffolding. Okay. Yes, thank you for those who are leaving. I know that you have so many obligations. Yes.
So, other questions from Tina. We need to be careful about the content, that AI produces, though. Yeah, it's not. Yes, it will not
Oh,
always be correct.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
of course.
I talk extensively about this online. Please watch my videos for the British Council. in teaching English. I have the links in the handout. I refer to this extensively.
Yeah.
And that's why we should always check our resources. And I think that that's what students don't realize, that all the resources that they're using are based on human knowledge. So they are, of course, biased. If the AI actually discovers a biased text about someone who is against LGBTQI or against women, the AI will incorporate this
Yeah.
into the output. And this is horrible. We
Yeah.
should always check our references and our resources. Yes, of
Yeah.
course. That's part of being a teacher as well.
Exactly. Okay, checking actually our sources anyway.
Yeah. Not all teachers check it. Not all teachers
No,
check
but
it,
this is,
unfortunately.
this is actually a
Yes.
responsibilities, okay, and
Yes,
this
it
is what,
is.
we should be learning.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. I wish I could expand upon CDA and UDL, but it's a 45-minute presentation about
Yeah.
so many things. I had to speed through it.
The universe, yes, the universal design of learning
That
actually would
takes
be very,
hours of
yes, that would,
explaining, but yeah.
very interesting. Or
Yes.
definitely critical discourse, definitely,
Yes.
especially, because we have two people here who will be working on that, in course books,
Oh, that's great.
Um, so, okay, other questions, and if there are questions, okay, we can receive questions. Otherwise, we can let Catherine go. She's working in a while, as far as I know.
Yes, I started 3 today, but I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm happy that everyone was able to attend earlier because our
Yeah,
initial thought was to do this presentation at 2, but now
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
much more relaxed.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So anyone
Good.
else, do you have any questions? I'm free. I'm here for you. I can answer anything that you'd like. Yes.
Well,
Thank you,
there
Tina.
just thank yous, for Elia, from Tina, from Marina.
Thank you. Did everyone download the materials? It's a download button on my blog. Did everyone download them?
If you haven't, I will forward them to you.
Yes, that's great.
Okay,
So Miss Natasha will send you a link, a zip
Okay,
folder.
okay. Good. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you. We really
Thank you all.
appreciate, for,
Thank you.
being
I
here.
I would like to thank you, Natasha, for being so respectful and for your love, for inviting me here. For everyone that is still here, Natasha supported me so much throughout, my endeavors, and so has Cosmas Vlachos and Mr. Nikos Sifakis and all of you, the audience. It's not easy for a trans educator to be teaching, and you know how society can be. It's overwhelmingly, how can I say this, heartwarming for me to have you all here with me today. I do not take this lightly. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
We
Thank
do
you.
appreciate. I hope that, personally, I will see you on the 17th.
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
Which will be a different presentation on ESP, correct?
You're going to love it.
Yeah.
You're going to love
Yeah.
it. It's
That
a
will be,
different
English for
presentation with a
specific
wonderful
purposes.
workshop for the university students. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know whether we can open. I have, to ask, of course, the university, but I don't know whether we can open it to our students or to those who might be interested.
That would be
But,
great. That
we
would
are
be
talking
great.
about ESP in that case and not, something else.
Yes.
We can
Yes.
ask Nikos.
Yeah, I have to ask Nikos, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. And
Okay.
yes, and I'll also bring copies of my book to the university.
Mm.
Okay. All
Good.
right, everyone. I'm also going to upload a sample. I got the sample like 20 minutes ago. A sample of my book is going to be online on my blog. I didn't have time to upload it. It's new.
Good.
So I'm also going to upload it within the next 15 minutes. Yes. So you can check out the contents of my book.
Good.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We
Thank
wish,
you all.
you have, a very good day. And
You
I
too.
hope that, if there are questions, I'll tell you what, I can collect questions and can
Oh,
address
yes.
them, to Catherine.
That would be great. That would be great. I can answer them
Okay.
all on my blog.
Or, some of you who might be doing, the research, I'm asking this openly. Could they use you as a resource person?
Of course, I'd be privileged and honored. I mean, that's amazing. If I could, be a hope, a source of inspiration to the students, that would be wonderful.
I definitely like to. Son, I submitted 4 TESOL degrees. My present with Sonia, I'll be presenting on including queer trans disabled students with sales folks on UDL, and she is presenting on cultural inclusivity. So like we're presenting together, and I'd like to definitely contact you for advice.
That would be great. That would be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Thank you all. You're wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Okay, nice, talking, to you, nice, listening to you. See you all.
See you all. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.